You've been told you're confident, that you're a people person, a natural. You lead meetings, crack jokes, hold attention in a room. You've spoken on the stages, hosted events, kept conversations flowing at dinner tables. So you believed it. You must be an extrovert, because how else could you be this good at showing up? But there's a feeling you can't shake, a quiet discomfort behind the performance, a sigh of relief when plans are cancelled. That moment, right before stepping into the spotlight, when you secretly hope something stops it. A power cut, a last-minute reschedule, anything that lets you stay home. You tell yourself it's nerves, or maybe burnout. But what if it's something else? What if the version of you that everyone sees isn't the version that restores you? You perform well, but you don't recharge there. You leave the crowd feeling drained, not energized. You leave social gatherings needing silence, not more connection. And the more you push through, the more exhausted you become. Not just physically, but emotionally, existentially, like something inside you is withering. You start to notice the pattern. You dread networking. You fake enthusiasm at family events. You nod and smile, but your inner world is folding in on itself. And that's when it hits you. Extroverts restore their energy with people. Introverts restore it in solitude. You're not an extrovert, you're just someone who learned how to perform. And that mask you wear, it's the reason you're suffering. You're an introvert in disguise, and the disguise is killing you. You weren't born reaching for the spotlight. You were trained to step into it. From a young age, you were praised for speaking up, for being outgoing, for being good with people. The louder you were, the more approval you got, the more sociable, the more lovable. And slowly you learned silence isn't golden, it's suspicious. Stillness isn't sacred, it's rude. Solitude isn't peace, it's a problem. So you adapted. You smiled even when your body said no. You joined in when you'd rather observe. You kept showing up because stepping back felt like failure. Every classroom taught you to raise your hand. Every job interview rewarded charisma. Every social script said the same thing. Be seen, be engaging, be available. And if you weren't, you were labelled quiet, awkward, antisocial, shy, or worse, selfish. The world doesn't teach you how to recognize your introversion. It teaches you how to override it. It trains you to dismiss your inner compass and respond to external applause. You become fluent in fake energy, a master of small talk, a reliable guest, host, speaker, leader, whatever the situation demands. And somewhere along the way, you forget that none of it feeds you. It just keeps the mask intact. Because the moment you say no to the dinner, the meeting, the drinks, you risk being seen as difficult, or different, or distant. So you stay, you show up, you suffer, not because you're weak, but because you were never taught that introversion is power, not a problem to solve. The cost of the mask isn't dramatic, it's not public. It doesn't crash into your life like a crisis, it creeps. It's the quiet fatigue after a perfectly normal interaction, the invisible drain after dinner with friends, the way your smile gets heavier the longer you hold it. You're not melting down, you're powering through, because that's what you've always done. And let's be clear, what you've built is impressive. You've carved out a life that demands performance, a role that expects presence. You might run the boardroom, speak on stage, lead a team. You're probably excellent at it. This script isn't here to shame that. It's here to name what that brilliance costs you, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. Because over time, that slow burn adds up. You find yourself pulling away from people you love, saying yes to things while your gut screams no, feeling like you're constantly on, even in your own home, and you might not be able to stop. You might not be in a place where stepping back is an option. The mask, for better or worse, is part of your professional identity now, but that doesn't mean you have to keep suffering. You can't keep borrowing energy you don't have. You can't keep living in performance mode without a recovery plan. That's not introversion. It's exhaustion wearing lipstick. The goal isn't to retreat from the life you've built. It's to learn how to live it without abandoning yourself in the process. You can still lead, speak, be seen, but it has to be on your terms now, with rituals that restore you, boundaries that protect you, and the permission to disappear when you need to come home to yourself. They looked like the definition of confidence: front of the room, voice that cut through noise, always ready with a story, a joke, a plan. They said yes to every invite, led the conversation, carried the room. From the outside, they were the extrovert, undeniably. But when the lights dimmed and the people left, they couldn't hear their own thoughts. And that silence, it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like relief. Relief that no one needed anything, that no one was watching, that they didn't have to be on. They'd spend days recovering from one evening, not because anything went wrong, but because everything went on too long. The conversation, the eye contact, the tiny social calculations, it all added up. And it started to show: low-level anxiety, caffeine dependency, cancelling plans last minute just to breathe. The people around them didn't understand. You're so good with people. You're always so upbeat. Why don't you come out anymore? And maybe you've lived that too, being treated like your withdrawal is rudeness, when really it's self-preservation. That person, the one who looked like an extrovert, they weren't faking it. They were surviving it. They didn't need a new social calendar. They needed a new understanding of who they really were. The day they realized they were an introvert wasn't the day they stopped showing up. It was the day they started showing up differently. Not to impress, not to perform, but to choose where their energy went. And for the first time, they left the room without leaving themselves behind. Something shifts when you finally name it. Not "I'm tired," not "I need a break," but "I'm an introvert and I've been living like an extrovert." It hits like truth, not loud, not dramatic, just quietly undeniable, and suddenly the past makes sense. The burnout, the social dread, the strange emptiness after giving so much. You weren't broken. You were misunderstood, even by yourself. Because introversion isn't about shyness. It's not about being quiet, or withdrawn, or socially awkward. It's about where your energy comes from, and where it returns to. And when you finally accept that your nervous system craves stillness, you stop apologizing for it. You stop justifying your no. You stop needing others to understand before you honor your own needs. That's the real awakening, not a personality shift, a permission slip. You begin to recognize the signs earlier, the internal hum of overwhelm, the micro fatigue after too much conversation, the moment when your body says enough, even if the room is still laughing. And instead of pushing through, you start stepping back, not with guilt, with grace. You let go of the need to perform your energy. You begin protecting it instead. And you realize introversion isn't something to overcome. It's something to come home to. Let's get something clear. Introversion isn't about how loud you are. It's about how your nervous system responds to the world. And for introverts, the world can feel loud even when it's quiet. Psychologically, introversion is linked to sensitivity, especially to stimulation. That includes noise, people, conversation, movement, even eye contact. It's not that you can't handle it. It's that your brain processes it all deeply. You don't just hear the words in a conversation, you feel the tone, the subtext, the emotional undercurrents, and that depth of processing takes energy. According to Hans Eysenk's arousal theory, introverts naturally have a higher baseline level of cortical arousal. In simple terms, your system is already switched on, so extra input from a chatty dinner to a buzzing party pushes you toward overload. That's why, even after an evening you genuinely enjoyed, you can't just go home and sleep. You need to decompress. 2 hours of silence, time to regulate, to come back to yourself. And when that decompression doesn't happen, it builds into anxiety, into burnout, into resentment. It's not about the event. It's about what your system had to do to survive the event. Introverts often rely on a mix of adrenaline and habit to show up, but adrenaline is a debt you have to repay, and for most people living out of alignment, the interest is getting steep. So, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not antisocial. You're not being dramatic. You're not too sensitive. You're wired for solitude, and the more you understand your system, the less shame you carry for the way you recover. So what do you do when your whole life was built on a mask you can't easily take off? You don't burn it down. You rebalance the system. Start here. Awareness before action. It's not about changing everything overnight. It's about noticing the moments when you feel yourself disappearing. Track your energy like you track your money. Who or what drains you fastest? What environments spark anxiety before you even arrive? Which parts of your day require a recovery window, even if everything went well? Then create a restoration plan, not as an indulgence, as essential maintenance. That might mean building in silence after social events, protecting your mornings with no calls, or creating clear wind-down rituals before bed, especially on nights when you've been around people. It could mean saying no to the party, but yes to a one-on-one walk, leaving early, arriving late, blocking out recovery time before you agree to show up. If you're in a public-facing role, leading meetings, running events, managing teams, you don't have to quit to protect yourself, but you do have to stop pretending your energy is limitless. Design your week like you respect your nervous system. Treat your social battery like gold. Give yourself what you actually need, not what you think you should tolerate. And if you're met with confusion or pushback, remember, it's not their job to understand you. It's your job to honor you. This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming so deeply self-aware that your energy stops leaking through the cracks you were taught to ignore. You don't have to keep pretending to be someone you're not. You don't have to keep smiling through the drain. You don't have to keep showing up for spaces that leave you hollow. Because now you know the truth. You were never broken. You were just mislabeled. taught that your performance was personality, that your ability was identity, that your value lived in what you gave, not what you guarded. But something's different now. You've stopped asking for permission to be quiet. You've stopped apologizing for needing space. You've stopped mistaking exhaustion for accomplishment. And in that shift, you've become something rare, an introvert who knows their power. You still lead, still speak, still perform when it counts. But now, you recover like it matters. Now, you rest without guilt. Now, you let yourself disappear without explanation, not to hide, but to heal. Because you finally understand, presence isn't something you owe. It's something you offer when you're full. And when you stop giving from depletion, you become unstoppable. Not louder, not busier, just clearer. This is what it means to belong to yourself again, to choose solitude not as escape, but as return, to recognize the quiet not as absence, but as home.